The pre-recorded roundtable discussion with Doulas is brought to you by Shades of Becoming a Mom and moderated by Tyree Reed, president of Shades of Becoming a Mom.
My name is Shanae Angrick. I'm a full spectrum doula. I am on the board of the Little Timmy Project, which is a grassroots nonprofit organization here in Indiana, working to help underserved communities, mothers, babies, and children get the needs that they deserve and need.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. Hi, my name is Geneva Shaw Mims, recently married, so I'm trying to remember my last name. I'm a full spectrum doula. I have been a full spectrum doula for about 2 years now. I started my own doula services called Tribe and Family Doula Services, where I serve women and families of all different spectrums, from fertility, abortion, adoption, all the way to birth and postpartum care. So that is what I've been doing.
Fantastic.
Hello, my name is Jasmine. I go by Jay. I am also a full spectrum doula with a focus on holistic care. I started my business, Passionate Birthing, back in 2019. But also I have been assisting and helping women ever since I was a child, 10 years old, the women in my family, close friends, and it just kind of grew from there. And my specialty, I like to say, is helping women tap into their innate natural ability to birth their babies any way that they desire. So that is my passion, to help women see their own power and empower them.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So my first question, we're going to start off very light. If you can give me a little bit more information about why it is that you decided to become a doula. So in this present time, we know that the United States, the statistics and disparities are just outrageous as it relates for Black women specifically. That's what we're talking about for this particular week, Black Maternal Health. And so was that a catalyst for getting you into becoming a doula, or did you just have a passion specifically for birthing?
So what really got me into doula work was in 2020, March of 2020, my daughter lived in Santa Cruz, and she gave birth to her child at 23 weeks. When she went into labor, she was alone. So I jumped on the plane and I went there to be with her. Unfortunately, Daniela Sophia did not survive. She would have been 2 this March. And so that was the final thing that said, this is something you should do. When it hit very close to home and my daughter was alone with no one to advocate for her, no one to support her at that very trying time. And my thought was, what if something happens to her? What if they are asking her to do something that she doesn't want to do? Who is there advocating for her? And I just remember thinking, as much as I didn't want my daughter to go through that alone, I never wanted any other Black woman to go through that alone, to walk into a hospital by themselves and being in that situation with no one there to advocate for them.
Absolutely. And I feel that sense of urgency. First of all, sorry for your loss. But that's kind of how Shades of Becoming a Mom came about. Is I received the phone call from a friend, and I had spent much time on my platform as Mrs. Central Indiana, advocating for pregnancy infant loss awareness. However, I got this phone call, and it was a young lady. She had been in a hospital. They didn't have a heartbeat, and they wanted to know, what to do. And so I began to send out resources and everything for them. But that became a wake-up call for me to say, there's absolutely a need. People inboxing me and sending me messages and telling me about their loss or their struggle with birthing, and specifically African-American women. And knowing that here in Indiana specifically, there really isn't, that I know of, organizations that specifically for infant loss that support African-American women, or African-American women are not using those services. And so I do applaud you 100% that, that particular milestone in your life helped you to become a significant part to helping reduce maternal health. Geneva, you want to answer that?
Sure. I think very similar to Shanae, I had a couple of experiences. One, the birth of my first child, I had 2 different experiences. I went in expecting, I was only 21, and I went in expecting like, well, I'm probably going to get an epidural because, you know, back then really didn't talk about birthing children and what that looks like. So I went in not really expecting anything, but I had a really horrible experience with the staff that night. They left me in the bed for hours. No one got me out the bed to do any walking, labor. I asked if I could do the birthing ball because I was told it was too late to get an epidural. I was dilated at like 8, and they told me that you can't get an epidural. You just have to birth all the way through. I found out later that wasn't true, and I could have got an epidural if I wanted. But either way, I went through this horrible experience of laying in the bed and a lot of pain. And in the morning, the nurses shifted. And then I ended up with some nurses who came in and got me out the bed. They got me in the shower. They walked with me. They gave me massages. And I just had a really beautiful experience after that and was able to bring my baby to birth naturally. So I had 2 experiences in one. And then several years later, my god sister, I believe in 2019, was experiencing preeclampsia, but they didn't diagnose it. And so me and her talked a lot about the symptoms that she was having and high blood pressure. And she was having horrible headaches. And I kept telling her, you know, it just doesn't seem right. It seems like it's something else. It seems like it could be more to it. After she had the baby, during her labor, she lost a lot of blood. They did a blood transfusion. They never told her any follow-up or anything after that. And a couple of weeks later, she went into a coma and found out that she had HELLP syndrome, and it did a lot of damage to her liver, and she almost died. And from there, because no one listened to her from the very beginning, and then even when it was happening, even after she was saying, I don't feel good, I don't feel right, she missed a huge chunk of the first part of her baby's life because she was in the hospital undergoing surgeries back to back. And so that kind of started my doula journey there, with like supporting her, going through that process with her, and then learning more about that specific condition. I decided then that I was going to figure out a way how I could be more involved, and how Black women went through this process. And so that's what really established it for me.
Thank you. Jasmine, you want to answer that question as well?
So I mentioned that I've been assisting women in my family since I was about 10 years old. And the one question that I always had was, what have women done before hospitals? I would ask, you know, my older family members, and I just wondered, like, how did women give birth before, you know, going to the hospital was such a standard thing. And it just sparked, I'm a researcher, so I have to get to the bottom of whatever question I have. So it fueled me to learn that women every day all over this country have birth without being in the hospital, without interventions, without someone telling them what they can and cannot do. Women listen to their bodies and they do what comes naturally to them. And I was just like, wow, okay, so this is a thing. Like, you know, so when I had my daughter 4 years ago, I knew I wanted to have a natural childbirth experience, because why not? This is what women do. And I didn't want to go to the hospital, but there's so much fear around birth. So against my better judgment, I did go to the hospital. Fortunately, I did speak up for myself, and I stuck to the plan that I had set for myself. I wanted to have a natural birth, and fortunately, I did have a nurse that was like, "Okay, let's do it. This is what you want to do. Great." And so I had the experience that I wanted. There were some other things that I wish I had more support and more information on things I could have asked for, but ultimately, I just was like, if women can do this and have been doing this, why are we not still doing that? Like, why does the hospital have to be the go-to? So that is what fuels me. That's my passion, is helping women get back to that and tap into that if that's what they want. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So we have Charity Bean that just joined us. I want to give her opportunity to introduce herself, and in her introduction, she'll share with us her why for becoming a doula.
All right, thank you guys. I apologize about being a little late here. My name is Charity. I'm better known as Doula Bean. I am a full spectrum doula. I was trained through Jemima Birth Village in Ferguson, Missouri. I am located in Belleville, Illinois. I am a member of the National Black Doula Association, as well as I am a student nurse. I am a part of the National Black Nurses Association. A little bit about me. I am, like I said, currently a nursing student at Chamberlain for my bachelor's degree. I've worked in healthcare about 13 years now. Literally every field you can work in, I've been there, but my passion has always been moms and babies. So about 6 years ago, an opportunity opened up for me to land in labor and delivery when we were opening up the new hospital here, Memorial Hospital East. And I was like, oh, labor and delivery, finally, I got an opportunity. So I kind of just snuck my way in there. And being there opened my eyes to things. I had never heard of a doula. And so being there, I remember one night, a young lady came in. A young Caucasian lady. She had a bag and all these things. She's rolling in, and I'm like, "Who's that?" You know, like I won't have more induction than she don't look pregnant. Who's that? You know, and they're like, "Oh no, that's her doula." I was like, "Her what?" You know, mind you, the hospital I'm working at the time, you know, it was majority Caucasian women, you know, running this birthing unit. So, you know, they're like, "You never heard of that?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." You know, what has this been all my life? Okay, struck my interest, but didn't think much of it. Issues with nursing school. So I'm a single mother. I had my son at 18 years old, which is a part of what sparked me to get more involved into pregnancy and birth work and just learning more, because I feel like as a teenager being pregnant, literally about to graduate high school, the statistics, I felt judged, you know, being a young mom and just things that were told to me. A lot of information was never given to me. And although my birth experience, although my birth experience wasn't, I was actually very empowered through it, just because when I'm in pain, or I'm like a naturally competitive person, almost let's compare, I was looking at that birth as a sport. But if you piss me off just enough, I am going to go through hell and hot water to prove you wrong. So that's how I felt with each wave and contraction. So, you know, they didn't tell me I could get up. I knew nothing of a birthing ball. I went through all those little free classes at like WIC and stuff like that, you know, things they give teenagers for better birth outcomes. I'm just getting a gift card and I'm going to go buy the baby something, you know. And as much love and support I had from my family members, my aunts and things like that, no, everybody was supportive, but nobody educated me. You know, it was just that, ooh, when those contractions kick in, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, but nobody's still preparing me. You're just making me afraid. Get in there, the process is going. Once it got really real, the nurses were terrified of me, because I was like, you know, they're like, oh, you need to lay flat. I'm like, I don't need to do anything. You know, like, actually my body hurts and I'm not laying flat. And like, even my mom was like, Charity, just listen to them. I'm like, listen to nothing. This hurts. But because I was so vocal, I did have a better outcome. However, it was still traumatizing for me because I didn't know about Pitocin. I didn't know these things. And literally when he came, he just shot out, you know, here he is. And it's like, oh my God, you're a mom. And it was like, holy crap, I am somebody's mom. He has to go home with me. You know, I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, so it just really sparked my interest, like thinking about my birth story and now, you know, seeing the difference. So that was 2007. Then I started working in the birthing unit in 2016. So just seeing how things had changed from there and learning so much stuff, like, oh, they weren't supposed to do that to me, you know. So it just sparked my interest. And like I say, in and out of being a single mom, in and out of nursing school, because it's like, you got to pay bills, you got to be a mom, taking in and out breaks. And so I was feeling like a failure and really feeling down on myself. So when I literally just stumbled across Jemima Birth Village, had forgot all about the doula thing. And when I found it, and the founder, Brittany True Kelman, I just went to a thing where she was speaking. So hearing her story, with it being so similar to mine, young mom, you know, teen mom, and, you know, just always having a passion for birth work, how she was done, how she was treated, I just like latched on. I was like, oh my God. And to see all this phenomenal work she was doing, and it's things that some of the things were already ideas in my head. And I'm like, I can do this. You know, I'm going to community baby showers that they're having with hospitals. I'm like, this has nothing to do with community. I don't get it. You know, just all these things where I was like, I can change this. And so ever since then, I latched on, I became a doula, and I took her training. My life has changed forever. I was depressed. I found my healing through this work and continue to do this work. Literally every day makes me a better woman. So that's a part of it. And I want every other woman to know you can have a better birth outcome, you can have an empowered birth, an educated birth, especially us Black women. We deserve it. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. And don't make anyone make you feel like you don't deserve to have this knowledge. I don't teach you how to be a good patient. I teach you how to have an empowered birth.
Fantastic.
Thank
So
you.
many of you all have said in some way, shape, or fashion, what is this? What is a doula? And so let's talk about that a little bit. There are different types of doulas that are out there that's related to birthing. And I know, Geneva, I had given this to you. Can you explain us what is a full spectrum doula? I know there's doulas that handle abortions or infertility. Like, what is that, and what does that look like? And then, when Geneva, if you can finish speaking, anyone else that want to add to that, please feel free to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure I'll leave out something. So full spectrum doulas. So basically there are many different types of doulas, and based on your need is what you would choose. And so us as the doula, we can go out and get any type of certification, but a lot of states you don't necessarily have to be certified either. But there are many different aspects of it. And so you can get a doula for if you're having fertility issues, or there are fertility doulas who serve that family and assisting them with all doulas are going to provide you with evidence-based research and information and resources based on what your need is. And so whether that be for fertility, whether that be for adoption services, you can have a doula support you through that whole process, starting from the very beginning of holding space and talking about your story and why you're getting an adoption and what are your resources and where do you start. You may think those things are small, but when you're already stressed out about something, having a person who can do the groundwork for you is really, really essential. For example, a miscarriage, you can have someone who supports you through grief and loss, through miscarriage. So those are different pieces of it. And then just for birth, you can have a doula who only supports you during birth, and they do your birth plan, they go in, they do the birth with you, they stay the entire time, and then up to a couple of hours to help you latch and nurse. And then we have postpartum doulas who are going to come and support you after that baby has been born, going into that, what we like to call fourth trimester. A full spectrum doula can cover all of those things. The full spectrum doula goes to get trained in all those aspects. They receive education from the beginning to the end. So from fertility, conception, all the way to postpartum, we have specifically went in and learned knowledge about each thing. We've read books, we've done some research, we've had some experiences with different types of families. And so we can go out and serve in any type of aspect that we choose to. So that's what a full spectrum doula does. And then in any piece that is inside of that, any doula can go out and get trained and do. Did I miss anything?
Thank you. I will piggyback and just say, with that, when you do full spectrum training, like I did, some people, like I tell them, you'll find your niche, because it is a lot. Especially if you have clients, it can be a lot to try to do everything, you know, and somebody could fall in between the cracks because you got somebody due now, you know, and I can't give you that attention. So I always tell people, you know, there's nothing wrong with being trained as a full spectrum doula, but find your niche, harness that, and then truly that's the part you want to advertise working, because that's your strong point. Like for me, pregnancy and your actual childbirth is my specialty. And I always say my specialty is hospital birth, because my goal is to make every hospital birth safe for every Black woman. Like, we deserve that. So that's the place where we got struggling the most. That's where I'm in the front line. So that's why that's my thing. But I've trained with people who, you know, I found out that actual process of birth, when they seen it, wasn't for them, you know. You know, yeah, or the lifestyle, you know, that even comes with it. People with smaller children may not have that availability all the ways with daycare, or, you know, daycare service to be at a birth for 12 to 18 hours, you know. So you know, full spectrum is great, but just find what your niche is and really to harness that and deliver.
Charity, you actually brought up a great point. And I know we have like our set of questions that we all have seen, but I like to really go with the flow of discussion. So before, when everyone was talking about their experiences, some of the words that I heard was pain, education, and support. How to deal with the pain, the need for education and support. And then Charity, you brought up not being overwhelmed. And so one of the reasons I understand that doulas are there is to improve birthing outcomes, what we're talking about today. And so if you are over exhausted and you have too many clients within the month, then maybe you're not creating the type of impact or dent that we want to have on maternal mortality or infant mortality. So maybe you all can share with us today, how do you manage your caseload? How many clients do you recommend that a doula would have? And especially even for a person that's looking for a doula, what questions are, how many people do you have? How many women do you have that's birthing or adopting or all of the other things that you might be doing within the month? And how do I compare? So can you address that? Let me start with Jasmine.
Yes. So I personally, because I like to spend a lot of time with my clients, I typically take one client per month, 2 at the max, because I have such a huge heart for birth. I don't like to turn women away. So if someone finds me and depending on their due date in relation to my already signed client, I may or may not take them, but I try to really give myself enough time to spend with clients. It's important to me that I get to build a bond with each client and get to know them. If I'm going to help them, during their birth or help them at postpartum or with whatever comes up, I want them to be comfortable with me and I want them to trust me. So I spend a lot of time with my clients. I meet with them weekly throughout their pregnancy. And then I spend a lot of time with them postpartum as well. So I can't take on 3-4 clients per month. That, to me, that's not fair to either of those clients, because I can't guarantee that I'm going to be at everybody's birth if that's what they hired me for, or, I just don't want to drop the ball. And because I believe that women deserve to have support, I would much rather call a friend, Geneva, do you have time? Do you have opening for this mom? I can't take her on and I don't want to just leave her out here to dry. So I try not to take no more than 2 clients per month. And sometimes I give myself a month in between just so that I can take care of myself as well, because if I'm not good, then I can't be of assistance to anybody. So I try to space it out and just make sure that I'm able to give attention and time to everybody that needs it, because if my belief is that they deserve it, then I want to be available.
Yeah. Anyone? Next, I want to take it.
I just second everything Jasmine just stated, that it is very important for me in my work where I don't take any more than 2 births a month. And I give myself time off in between, because my mental health is very important. And it is all about, then if my mental health is great, then I can hold space for you. I can empower you. I can advocate for you. I can be there for you 100% fully. So when you are giving birth and you are in that state of vulnerability, you know that I am there holding this sacred, safe space for you. Mm-hmm. I've taken the time. I would say for anyone looking for a doula, you can ask during that doula interview, how many clients do you take per month? And I feel like a lot of doulas who understand the importance of the work, and that one key element of the work is being able to hold space for that person mentally and emotionally, not just physically, they are going to have a really good view about how they space their clients out. Because you have to think about on call also. Yes. So I'm on call for 4 weeks. So really it's not just 2 a month, it's with 2 within a 4-week period.
That's right.
And then I take 4 weeks off.
Yes.
So, and usually that just comes down to, then I'm really just off for 2 weeks, because if a pregnancy goes over. So you just have to really, most importantly, carve out time for yourself, and then let your business plan around how you accept clients and how many clients you accept be a living, breathing document. It can change. You don't write it and keep it there. It's like, it has to change either for you or your client to make those changes as needed.
Thank you. And that's part of the reason why we're doing a pre-recorded session, is because babies come when they're going to come. And so we picked the time that's in the near future to do our recording, so that we didn't have individuals not able to make it. And then something else was brought up that Jasmine said, it was that a backup doula, that may be a question to ask is, do you have a backup a doula on your roster or a list of individuals you can call? So in case if you can't, so even if you're two that you had, let's say one have a March 5th date and the other one have a March 31st date, but baby decides to come early. And so now they're both born on the same day. So what do you do about that? And so that's a great question for individuals to ask as well. So this idea, this concept, so I hear you talking about the support, being there in the room with the mom, helping her through it. Can you walk me through what does look like from the point of I call you up and I say, if you're with me throughout the whole time, because I know I had a doula as well. And I'm a need to know, want to know person. And I had a bad experience. I had an ectopic pregnancy that ended poorly. And I struggled with depression and PTSD from that experience. And so when I finally got to a headspace where I was able to decide to tell my body we're going to have a baby, because not any other miscarriage that happened before that. We're going to have a baby. And so I hired a doula a year and a half before I was ready. And so that person was there from the trying part of it to help me mentally deal with the trauma of trying to conceive. And then once we were there, I opted for education. Even as a woman who has a master's degree and all but her dissertation completed, I opted for education. So first question, I know I asked about, how you work with them, but let's start with this first. How important is childbirth education? And do you think that helps deter some of these negative outcomes?
Absolutely. I would love to start that. That is my passion.
I was like, go for it. She ready.
Yeah, that is my passion because that's actually included in like my packages. So I have 5 classes instead of just saying, one-on-one preps. Like I literally have you come in the office. We do everything. I give a general overview of labor, whether it ends in a belly birth or vaginal birth, how these can go. I want you to understand inductions, if you should choose, because, we'll always get somebody who say they're going all natural. And then you get the ones that to get to the end of that pregnancy, they 37 weeks, and they're like, I'm just done. Nothing I can do to convince you not to. And it's not my job to convince you not to. I like to make sure you know the pros and cons to every decision you make. And I want to make sure you make it safely. So early on, when you're about 25 weeks, we get in. And that's when we do those classes and then how labor stages and phases, right? But it's so important because if the earlier on we start this education, the better it is to open up conversations with their providers. Because I want to catch you early on as possible. Like if you come even at 12 weeks, well, you still got assignments and videos. Because I want you to understand when you're going to your doctor, starting your notebook, write this down. Using the right verbiage, for example, you'll go to a doctor who says, and you're like, so I can labor in any position I want. So there's the catch. Yeah, you can, but you didn't say the right verbiage because now you get in and it's time to push. And they're like, okay, lay back. You're like, oh no, you told me I can labor in any position I want it. Yeah, you can labor, but now it's time to push, not knowing that you're supposed to say give birth, you see. So I love to educate on those little things, making sure you're using the right verbiage with them from my classes so that throughout the rest of this pregnancy, we can have a better outcome, help you create a birth plan, and also find out, hopefully sooner, if this provider is even going to be for you. Because if I get so many no's, or they're not listening to this, whatever I got on my list that I want to talk to you about, or you make me feel unwanted here or unheard, then I suggest you find somebody else. And find them early on can help better outcomes. So I'm big on the education so that we can use the right verbiage, saying even little things where you can get a misdiagnosis. Let's say you woke up, kids running late, everything going on, you're tired, you're stressed, you're annoyed, or you just had an argument with your partner, whatever the case may be. You get to your doctor's appointment, your body's still processing this, right? So you got a little elevated blood pressure, never had a blood pressure issue before. Also, you have gestational hypertension. But being that you're my client, now you know that it's okay and it's safe to say, actually, I'm just not having a good day. This is what happened. This is what took place. Let me come back in about 2 or 3 days or so for a nurse visit for just a blood pressure check. If it's still elevated, all right, we'll go from there. I may decide to take the medication. But that's something somebody wouldn't know. They would assume just because the doctor said that's law and you have to do it. So those are just examples to me of why education is so important so they can make the best informed consent decisions for themselves.
I'm going to agree with her. And then also, Me and Jay actually just did a childbirth education class. She went over some things with me, and we talked about I love how she talks about everything too. And so going over not just the birth, but then we also talked about like newborn care and what does your family support look like afterwards? What's your postpartum plan? So even talking about those things is early, like she said, the more education you do early in the pregnancy, the more prepared you are for everything. So that birth and that outcome and then later. And I love how she said that her patients, her clients are educated when they go in to talk to the doctor. They have information already, so they know the verbiage. I love that because that's true. Our doctors do not teach us. We go to our appointments. They go in and they check us. They check our stomach.
That's right.
They check your blood pressure. They do a lot of medical things, but they do not give you education. They don't even suggest to you about a doula or a childbirthing class or to visit the hospital or, what do you want your environment to be like? Those are things that should be incorporated into things with your doctor because this is an experience, but they do not do that at the doctor. You go in and you do checks and that's it. Nothing else. So really what's expected is you go into the hospital and you just have a baby. And that is what we've been doing for years and years and years without any kind of education. Maybe you go sit in a Lamaze class and they talk about, what do they talk about the whole time? Birth.
Breathing and birth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Breathing. And they don't really tell you what the breathing is for. They just give you the stages of labor. They go through each stage. And they don't even talk about the actual pushing part and how long that may take. It's just like, oh, you just do, you're going to have the baby and they tell us how it develops and stages of labor. And all that is fine and dandy because that's this one little piece of it, because it's really the work that the mother has to do and what that looks like surrounding that is really about the labor and delivery of the baby. And like Jay said earlier, that mom's mental state and their environment and their stress levels and their support systems. And so the cool thing about a doula is that you're getting all of that education, you're getting all of that support, and we do not leave you during the birth. Like if we have to leave, then we should have a backup support that's coming to stay with you. So when you go into the hospital, the nurses are coming in and out of the room. No one's staying in there with you. The doctor doesn't stay in there with you and the nurse does not stay in there with you. So if you don't have a family support, like maybe your mom's there, but she's not a doula. So those kind of things I think about when we're talking about educating our families before we go into this journey is really, really important. It's actually essential for having an empowered birth, I think.
Absolutely. There. I want to add in something, and maybe whoever didn't get an opportunity to speak can add on to whatever their thought was with this. So my live pregnancy or birth was, I'm the person, I call myself the side effect lady. So if the bottle says there's going to be side effects, I'm going to have all of them. If they say that these are lists of possible complications you can have in pregnancy or birthing, that's going to be me. And so one of the things I enjoyed about having a doula was, of course I had an ectopic pregnancy, so I learned about that, but I never thought about my child becoming breech, and she was. I never thought about my placenta being up front, and it was. I never thought about what how thin my birth canal was and what type of issues it would have. And someone talked about breathing. I never thought about the fact that the machine would not register my contractions. So as Jay talked about, what did they do long time ago? So when I was in the hospital, they had to rely on me to know when I was having contractions because I had no pain, no contraction pain. So I had to become one with my body. And my doula had taught me how to listen to my body and understand it and own it. And so I was able to tell the nurses when it was time to push. So there was no telling me, okay, now push. That was not what happened in my situation. It was me. Okay, now it's time to push. And then they, coach me, and there was all of them yelling, and I wasn't saying much or anything. But so, just to think, if I had not had a doula, what would that birth look like? It did not check the normal boxes, and all the technology in the world was not about to help me. And neither was the pain medications that they wanted, because I did have some back pain, but I had an Advil back pain. I didn't have an epidural back pain. And so just that knowledge of knowing how to go through all of that stuff. So a couple of things that was said. Birth plan. What is a birth plan? I thought you just get pregnant and have a baby. So what is this idea of a birth plan? Let's go with someone who has spoken yet.
I like to think that this education is important and should start before a woman becomes pregnant. So if her and her partner are thinking in a couple years we want to have a baby, start going to childbirth education then. Learning all these terms, learning about this stuff, then, not once you're pregnant, because that's overwhelming in itself. You don't even know what your pregnancy is going to be like until you get pregnant. So it would be helpful to have already been getting education, so then when you are pregnant, you are just a little bit more prepared. And to your question about birth plans, I like to teach my clients that they are the birth plan. So no matter what you decide to put on paper, you are the birth plan, because it's, again, a living, breathing thing that can change. You can change your mind. Sometimes when we think we need to put stuff on paper, we think like this is final. And it's like, you can change your mind even in the midst of it. You may decide, okay, yes, I do want them to vaccinate my baby. And then in the middle of it, you freak out and you're like, no, I didn't get enough information on that. I changed my mind. But if we put it on paper, we feel like, I got to stick to this. So the birth plan is something that typically we do with our doula or your spouse or on your own if you do your own research. And you just decide what you want for your birth and what you don't want for your birth. If you're going to have a hospital birth, what procedures would you like once your baby comes out? And then we have to be specific, because in history, medical providers just do things on their own without talking to the patient. Things like episiotomies, where clients have been cut without their knowledge. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the husband stitch, but this is something that used to be done to women without their knowledge, and male doctors would do this as some sort of like thing for the husband, making a woman tighter, as they say, after birth. But because of these things, we're having to create birth plans that are very specific on yes and no's, do's and don'ts, because the history of basically being assaulted in childbirth has been a thing. So a birth plan is just a document that's saying, you are allowed to do this to me. You are not allowed to do this to me. You're allowed to do this to my baby. You're not allowed to do this to my baby. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. But I teach my clients that they are the birth plan, another way to empower them and to remind them that they have a voice. So yes, it may be on paper, and yes, you may have something physical for your doctor to put in your file, but ultimately you at any moment can change your mind. You at any moment can speak up and say, no, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. So you are the birth plan.
I like how she put that.
Yeah, I love that. I told her that yesterday. We were talking about that.
Yeah, that was good. I just say it's a hope. I say our birth plan is a hope. It's like we going in, this is how we want things to go. But I said, because of the way I educate, I make sure you have I'm a plan A, B, C type person. So I say you make sure you put on that in the event that I cannot, for a medical reason, necessity, do this, I am okay with that. Like if something really went on in the baby, heart rate, yes, I'm okay with this, these days, if need be, or back, like you're saying, just different stuff. So I like to make sure we discuss it all. You have a clear idea of this, so that diminishes trauma as well, because a lot of trauma comes from what we didn't know. And so it's like, well, now I know, I feel, again, my power is back because I was able to make my own decision. So I like them as educational and, just knowing what we got.
And also that it doesn't have to be on this like particular format. It doesn't have to be, beautiful. It like she said, it's saying here's what I want. I like to list, the care providers, emergency numbers, like something for the mom, for the family too, the birthing person too, so they can remind themselves of what they decided, and what they want. But like you said, you can always change your mind. We talk about that too, like this is what we have and this is what we're going with. But if you decide to change your mind, be advocate, be empowered that you can change your mind at any given time. But then also teaching them that birth plan is what they want for themselves and what they see for it, to be confident in that, to trust themselves and that they're making these decisions, because doctors and nurses will come in when we put the birth plan up on the little bulletin board so they can see it. They will come in and they will grab it and they will look at it. And sometimes the birthing people will get intimidated sometimes because they'll ask it in an intimidating way. Oh, you don't want the K vitamin drops. Oh, you don't want to get vaccinated. Oh, are you sure about that? So they will ask you after they have clearly looked at your birth plan and see what you wrote. And they will still ask you for clarification about things. So just knowing like, this is what I want, this is what I said, and having that confidence, like she said, that I'm sure about whatever I've decided and you don't have to question me. And I've had facility come in and question the birth plans or try to push things on them, even though the birth plan or the decisions that they've made. So I just like to say as well, like, be confident in what you've decided. And if you want to change your mind, change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think on that, just piggybacking off that, sometimes because I was laying on both sides of the spectrum. I'm a nurse, student nurse, and I'm also a doula. I'm in two different roles. But I've noticed, as I always tell people, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because yes, we are trained to double check, this what you want. But like you said, if I'm asking it funky, like, oh, you don't want the service, the K, compared to, hey, I'm looking at your birth plan. I see on here you wrote that you didn't want this. Just want to confirm, is that still the plan? Is that something you still want to go with? I just have to ask, because if you don't ask, then you flagging yourself. Because if I document something, you change your mind. Now I'm in the world of trouble. But again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So they need to work on those personal biases from those medical professionals.
Yep.
And I will just add, like, the birth plan also, it's great to walk through that with a doula, your partner, or whoever's really close to you, and have the understanding that as the birthing person, this is how you envision your birth. This is your birth. It's not your friend's birth. It's not the birth that you saw on TV and what they did and what this person didn't do. It is your birth. So I always tell my clients when they say, I want to have a natural birth, I say, well, what does that look like to you? Because what I think natural is going to be different from you and it's different from the next person. So if you're saying I want natural, but my main goal is that I don't want to have a C-section. Okay. Does that include that you are possibly open to an epidural and these other things? And some of them will say, yeah, as long as I have the baby vaginally, that's what I want to do. Or then you do have some people that are like, I want complete natural or nothing. But then when you say, so you don't want any type of pain medication, well, I don't want an epidural. Okay, there are other things that they may offer you. So let's talk about those now. So it's just like making sure they are educated on everything, and definitely the birth plan. Like, this is what you envision your birth to look like, not what you've seen on the TV, not what your friends have said, and not what I'm saying. It's like, what does this look like for you? And letting them know, own it right there, and it can change. It is a living, breathing document. When we can get there, you can say, Shanae, you know that thing we created? Throw it out the window. Perfect.
So I think three of you all talked about questions and questioning. And as we talked about the role of the doula, one of the things that doulas do is help you formulate questions around your birth that you can go in and ask your doctor. I have heard stories time again where a woman didn't hear the sound of her baby and she went in and the doctor said that everything was fine, but she didn't ask for an ultrasound, or she asked for an ultrasound and they said, no, we didn't need it. And then come to find out that the child had died. I've heard other stories of just women who have come in and they asked a question, but they did not question the authority of the doctor, or they didn't get a second opinion. So this is a non-research, non-clinical question. It's just you as a Black woman and as a Black doula, and based on your experiences, personal or with your clients, what do you think is the rationale, the reason why, and let's just keep it, we can say women or even African-American women may choose not to question the authority of the doctor or get a second opinion from someone else? What might be some of those constraints around it, or is it cultural? Would someone would like to address that question?
I think I'm going to let Chastity answer, but the word you're using right there is part of the problem: authority. I own my body.
Yes.
You don't have authority over me.
Yes.
And a lot of people think like the doctor has authority on them when they walk through the clinic. The doctors and nurses and the staff know what's best for them.
Yes.
And that's the culture we have to change in medical settings. And that's where if my clients are having hospital birth, that's what I'm looking for. Those are the things we are changing.
Absolutely.
I agree. And the doctors think they have authority over our bodies. And that's
Exactly
the issue as well.
Yep.
A marriage.
To think that those who wear those white coats
syndrome, yeah,
have all the answers, which is why a lot of times we take more to our nurse than we do our doctor. We feel more intimidated by our doctor because they have that white coat on, they have a clipboard, or a lot of times our nurses come into the room and they just have on their scrubs and maybe their stethoscope around their neck, and they seem a little bit less intimidating and less authoritative. But it's just been programmed into us since we were children, and every TV show we've ever seen, every movie we've ever seen, that doctors just know it. They just come in the room and they just demand it, or they spit out some sort of information that we think is law and we have to believe it. So it's in our culture, it's everywhere we see, everywhere we look. And so what I tell my clients is, who knows your body better than you? A doctor that you just met for the first time when you got pregnant, or you who's been in your body since birth, So what they have to say may be, factual, but can just be a recommendation. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean that you can't question it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't ask more questions. And if they are not willing to talk to you, that's a red flag. So we want to find someone else, or we want to go somewhere else. But I think that we see them this way. It's just because that's just what we've been taught our whole life about doctors. You go to a doctor for everything. Yeah. Something's wrong, go ask a doctor. They know. They got all these degrees and letters and schooling, so they must know, right? But it's your body. It's your body. How can someone not inside your body tell you about your body?
Yeah. And Charity, I know you're going to jump in. I want to put a monkey wrench in this, if you will. Appreciate the framework of changing the concept of doctors as authority, but maybe knowledge experts that can be challenged based on a second opinion. But what if the woman works, 14-hour a day job, they can barely get off. Maybe they look at their financial constraints, just getting in the psyche of what's happening out there, of why aren't is it because it's just not taught second opinions? And, how do we get across some of these hurdles, financial hurdles, so we can get what we need, especially when we know our bodies very well, we're living in them. Go ahead, Charity.
First thing I would say with that, I always say, yes, nobody knows your body better than you. But then again, sometimes people have that lack of confidence of trusting because they don't know their bodies yet, right? So my best example, I always say, that's another human being. If I can't say it no other way, that is another human being that you're talking to that just so happened to probably read another book than you and got a test done, but you can read that exact same book and have the exact same knowledge. So therefore, human beings means human error. Human errors happen because humans make mistakes and there is no perfection. So therefore, empowering them to know, hey, you have the opportunity to ask for a second opinion. And if at any time that human, white coat and all, that human doesn't acknowledge what you're saying or say, oh, you don't need one. Okay, so they're giving you their opinion right there. So you make sure you say, oh, I don't need a second opinion on the discomfort I'm having. So are you saying you're refusing to acknowledge? Again, verbiage is everything. So when you tell that doctor, and I don't care if you piss them off, they'll get over it because they're going to leave with a funky attitude now because you have to do your job, right? So if I'm telling you, I say to you, oh, so you're refusing to acknowledge my concern? I guarantee you they will walk out that room with a different attitude because as soon as you say that, so if you're refusing, can I get that on paper? Can we document that? And I want to print out of that. Let's make sure my record reflects that you're refusing so that if something goes wrong, you go to court of law. Remember, that's on there that says they refuse this, right? There isn't too many doctors out here that are going to stick with that. And I've had that happen to a client before where something was going on with her body and she was trying to explain it and the doctor was brushing her off and she's texting me crying as he walked out the room for a minute. And sure enough, I said, ask him, is he refusing to acknowledge your concern? Say these exact words. Don't be scared. Say these exact words. Sure enough, she said it. He had a bit of attitude, but he went out to take a second look. Well, there was something he missed that the nurses didn't give him from her ER visit at another hospital that showed something going on. And she did need to be on bed rest. Because, sometimes Black women, they like to assume, oh, we just being lazy. You're just pregnant, you're tired, you can go to work. Sure enough, after she got that second opinion with that, he referred her where she was going to like MFM and things. But I told her after that, she didn't want to go there anymore. She left that doctor's office, went to a different one, got the care she loved and enjoyed, and was happier ever since. So again, it's so much, that's when you kind of get back to the education portion of it. If you arm our people with the right verbiage, you're going to make that person move, because now they're afraid for their license, or they're like, oh, let me look into this first, let me do something. And then came in with a different attitude because he saw he missed something and was even more sympathetic and even apologized to her. So that's why it's so important to do those things. Just know what you're saying, and be obviously an advocate for yourself. You don't have to yell, we don't have to fuss, we don't have to get ugly or any of those things to say, hey, I want something else looked at, to demand what we deserve.
Yes.
And I add another layer to that about culture. Why we don't ask for second opinions, when we start talking about Black people, Black bodies have been abused for centuries. We just been recognized, and so our bodies were experimented on, were used, and so that going from generation to generation to generation, like we carry a generational trauma with us. My mom passed in 2016. I had to literally drive an hour almost daily to make her go to the doctor. She was limping. All these symptoms, right? But it's a fear of going to the doctor. One, it's the fear of the unknown, and it's a fear of them not listening. It's the fear of feeling unheard. If I do tell you what's wrong with me, you tell me it's something different, or you tell me it's not true. So those aspects of it are really heavy in our culture, and it's really difficult to like walk into a doctor's office and tell them what's wrong with you, and then a lot of times they're giving you ideas. They're not giving you solid answers. They're not learning enough about you to even give you some determinations on, if you need a second opinion. So all of those things I think are very, instrumental in the way that we interact with the system and the way we interact with doctors and medical. It is another system that we are now, getting that education around, and supporting each other and advocating for each other and saying it's okay to say what's wrong with you. It's okay to ask questions. And so we're developing that. But for years, we haven't had that opportunity. We haven't even had that that luxury like everyone else to be able to do. And so now we're saying to doctors, and we're advocating for ourselves, and we're asking more questions, but we have not always had a history or a luxury to do that.
And we also have to, just kind of playing devil's advocate, we have to continue to break those generational curses, because you do have so many people where, your mom did this, your grandma did that. And like I was saying, even my birthday, my mom was telling me, stop, fussing, chair, and do what they say. It's like, no, I'm not doing that, and that, we're in our culture, oh, she thinks she better, stuff like that, that's going on, like our own culture working against us, because, you went through this, or, your grandma went to this doctor, your mama went to this doctor and delivers you. And so, oh, I know Dr. Smith always right. I know he right. He loves us. Dr. Smith is causing harm, Mom. Sorry, reality check. What happened to you was wrong, sis.
Yeah.
And because
really.
we are, seriously. And that's something that we have to change in our culture, because that whole hush thing, we were even talking about that with employment. Like, I think there's a lot of people in their 50s on up, I'm gonna let people in their 40s slide, maybe a little bit late 40s, early 50s on up, still have that mentality of white is right, what the doctors say is right. You don't argue with it, doctors, or you don't, you just, oh, they said this, so that must be what's wrong. No, actually, it's a human being and it ain't right. And so making sure, because that can be defeating too, when you feel like your family members are making you feel bad for being empowered.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I would say another thing is when we talk about financially and understanding your own health insurance. So a lot of people are afraid to ask for a second opinion, maybe because there's additional financial burden that comes. Is this going to be an out-of-pocket cost? Can I afford it? As in all reality, if you're doctor is not meeting your needs and you walk in there, a pregnant patient, and you say something is wrong with me, and that physician says, I don't think it's that, go home, XYZ. He doesn't have to give you a second opinion. He doesn't have to call someone up. You don't need a referral. What you need is you walk out that door, you pick up the phone, you call another doctor, you go to the ER. But if you don't understand your insurance, or you don't have that financial freedom to do that and take that out of network or out of pocket cost for the fear of like the cost of medical bills after, then that's another hindrance. But the other thing is also is taking a little bit of that power back from the physician. They are not the authorities. They are another human, and humans make humans mistakes. And you also have the power to go to another doctor. You don't need that provider's permission to go to another doctor. You can just go. And so there's a lot around that comes from generational. Like you said, Dr. Taylor, he's birthed all of you. I've known him for 20 years. He's the best. Just do what he says. Well, no, for 20 years, he's been causing harm to us. And you don't see it. But also, I don't need Dr. Taylor's permission to walk myself to the ER or pick up the phone and call another provider. And we have to educate on that too. Like, what are your patient's rights? What are your rights as a patient? And understanding your health insurance. You know?
Yeah, even with Medicaid or state insurance, you just because they put that name on your card or tell you, oh, you got to go to this one, you're not stuck with this one. It's the same as private. Like, learn what other doctors are in network. Now, does it limit you to the options, or in the odds of you maybe finding another community-based doctor may still be kind of the same issues? And then again, maybe not, because you could just mesh better with this person compared to that one. It's a human thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I appreciate all of that. You know, the idea of, you know, the doctors, the nurses, the doula are all partners in this space with you. And so this idea of, you know, this glorious birthing experience or this great pregnancy experience, and I'm going in, I'm vulnerable, so I'm asking these questions. And so I'm expecting that the knowledge experts want to share with me that thought process, that fairy tale to have in your head. However, the reality is, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because you have to advocate for yourself. It doesn't have to be seen as a bad thing simply because of the fact that you say, I want a second opinion. Or if you are, like I was, even with my doula, present, still having to advocate for yourself nonstop and say, no, this is not what's happening. You know, this is what's happening. That's okay too. That is absolutely okay too. Because every birthing experience looks different. And then you don't know who's going to be in your space. So like, you know, I had a great thing going with the first set of nurses that were there. And it's not that I didn't have a great thing going with the second, because they all were fantastic. It's just that in the first group of nurses, one of them had been doing it for like, I don't know, 30 years. And so she knew what was going on with me. She understood it clearly, what was going on with me. And so, so that was easy. So when the new nurses came on, they were like, what? You know, what do you mean? I've never not seen this type of a situation happen. So I have to because I was there for 3 days, you know, I have to get reacclimated to a new staff and, you know, their demeanor, their, you know, understanding what's happening in here, understanding the whole birth plan, and no, you're not about to break my water and I'm only 4 centimeters dilated, you know, that kind of stuff. And so that's okay. That is absolutely okay. If it is that you have to have those kind of conversations when you think you're going to be hugging bunnies and kissing puppies and stuff like that, may not happen for you. At the end of the day, what's most important is that you stay alive, your child stays alive, and you get to go home and then have all those great warm and fuzzy moments and stuff. Geneviève's going to say something.
I was going to add, you also made me think about the fact that we don't like to seem difficult. So sometimes we won't ask questions because we don't want to seem difficult, or we'll go along with it because we don't want to question it. And, you know, what if I'm wrong? But it's okay if you're wrong. It's okay to ask a question and get clarification. And it's okay to advocate for yourself and understand what because sometimes doctors come in and they use language, and not even on purpose. They're talking in doctor talk terminologies. And I'll always turn to my client and say, did you understand what he said? You know, or do you have any questions about what just happened? And they'll have questions. And it's like, okay, you know, ask him to break that down differently. Because it's okay if you don't understand it, but we want to get you to understand, because we don't want, again, doctors making decisions around things and you're just going on along with it because you don't want to feel stupid, or you don't want to ask the question, or you don't want to seem difficult, or things start getting rushed and you don't want to feel like you're the person holding it up. Well, that's okay. We're gonna slow it down because this is your experience. It's your birthing experience. You're the only person that matters, you and this baby, and how that works out for you is important to us as doulas. And so I like to tell my patients, my clients all the time, like, you can ask me whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to get mad. Like, it's really my job to support you, and that's it. My feelings do not matter in this situation. So I think that's important too, as Black women. Like, we feel like sometimes we walk into a space and we try to make it easier on everybody else, and we carry that with us into our birthing experience, and that's what your doula is for, to help you not do that.
I like what you said. I like what you just said, because I've had clients before, even me as a doula, and they want it all natural. I stuck with you, baby. I'm gonna keep reminding you what you said, but if you tap out, that's fine with me. And I've told them a bunch of times, baby, if you decide you want to get something, it's okay. We can do that. But I had one getting the epidural and I'm holding. I'm like, I don't know what you want to do. She's crying. She's like, I let you down. I'm like, you did not. What did you do? This has nothing to do with me. I want what you want. Boo-hoo and tears. She's like, no, because I told you I was going to do it. I'm like, and we still are, we still don't give birth. It's okay, So I like that part, what you said. Like you said, we're here for this. Because that's a misconception with doulas. People think, and again, I don't know how you define natural, but most people think natural, like, I'm no medicine, nothing. That's what my doula's for. And I'm like, baby, I'm not Advil. I just want to remind you that you can do it. Whatever you choose to do, I'm rocking with you.
Yeah, you still got to do the work.
Yeah, but you got to do it. Yeah, I'm like, I think we're a little confused here. But yeah, the crying like you let me down, you did not. I need you to survive this. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And I think I want to add something else that is fear. We say that, well, I don't want this, and then we're hit with all the, well, this could happen and that could happen. Well, what about this and about this? And it's like, wait a minute. we get so overwhelmed with all these statistics or these side effects, and then we think, oh, okay, well, what I want is not the best option. It's like, wait. So something that I continuously remind my clients is someone else's fears do not have to be yours. Just because they're afraid of that doesn't mean you have to be afraid of that. Yeah. So it's okay if you say, I don't want to get an epidural, and they hit you with, well, the pain could be more than you expected, or, it could be so painful that you pass out, or it could be this, that you could die. And it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wish I would hear that. I'd be like, she can work.
It's like, we know that there's all these things over here, but who's to say that that's going to impact you? You don't know, so don't make a decision based off of the what ifs and the fears. Like I said, someone else's fears don't have to be yours. Someone else's experience doesn't have to be yours. People like to ask doulas a lot of times, what are our experiences? And I don't mind sharing my experiences with clients, but I tell them this is my experience, and it doesn't mean that that's going to be your experience. We're two different women. We're two different bodies. This is two different times. You're having your baby now. I had mine 4 years ago. Things are different, so you don't have to take on someone else's stuff. Like, it's okay for you to want what you want and be confident that you're going to get what you want. So
absolutely. I always say, learn from my mistakes, honey. I didn't know dilly squat 14 years ago. I just made it through. So I'm teach you so you don't make the mistakes I did.
Right.
So I want to, if it's okay, and you can add it into this, because I want to ask a few more questions of us as we're coming near the end of our time. I want to talk about something that I know you to respond to, is that fourth trimester. When you get pregnant, we hear 9 months when it's actually 10. You hear 3 trimesters when it's actually 4. I mean, it's all kind of, talking about education, definitely necessary. I really want to talk about a little bit of that fourth trimester, or for some people, it may be they've had a live birth, and so they're in that space. And for some people, had a miscarriage, a stillborn baby, and so now they're at that postpartum space, if you will. can you take a little bit of time and talk to me about one, what does care look like? What should it look like for a woman? If you lose a baby and you're depending on what your work's environment look like, you may not be able to get time off to grieve that child. So, what does that postpartum space look like for someone, for a doula? How does a doula support them through that? Or if they don't have a doula, what is your advice or tips for managing that time frame?
So I am a postpartum doula after loss of an infant, whether by miscarriage or stillbirth. And once again, my daughter was my reasoning for getting that additional certification. During that time, your doula is there to support you mentally and emotionally. That's going to be the main goal and the main focus, to make sure that your mental health is primary focus for you, your partner, your support system, family members, whoever that may be. Help develop a plan to look for signs and symptoms. What's baby blues versus postpartum depression? So although baby didn't come home, you can still get that postpartum depression. So that's the first thing we want to make sure that we understand. And then what is the baby blues versus postpartum depression? Baby blues will leave after a couple of weeks. That postpartum depression will stay. What are signs and symptoms to look for? Do you have a therapist? Do we need to start looking at a therapist? Help them get into support groups if that's something they want to do. Mm-hmm. Like I said, build that community that they have within their own family as their support system also. And then you're putting eyes on them before they go back to the doctor, because they're still not going to go back to the doctor until 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So you're there within a few days to help them unpack everything, let them share, let them get off their chest if they want to, someone they can cry to and be angry in front of. Because you will find, depending on that person, them themselves, or they someone that just holds on to stuff and don't let it out, or also they weren't the only one that experienced the loss. So are they trying to stay strong for those around them? Yeah. Well, you can be the person that they can break down in front of and let it go. Mm-hmm. So it's just holding space for them, but holding this space during this very trying, difficult, and delicate time. And also just, talking to them about the importance of crying if they need to, screaming if they need to. It's 2:00 in the morning, you're up, you can't sleep, and you're angry. Pick up the phone and call me and let it out. Mm-hmm. I can handle it. I'm going to be here for you. Because I would rather you let it out with me than it goes into something that you feel trapped in and you feel so suffocated by that then harm happens.
Mm-hmm. Something else to add to that, I think it's important for doulas and birth workers to educate themselves on, as well as their clients, is other perinatal mood disorders outside just postpartum depression. So postpartum psychosis, postpartum anxiety, just there's a whole list of other perinatal mood disorders outside of postpartum depression that get missed because we're only looking for PPD. And and women experience these things and they may be afraid to say something because as a new mother, or not even new, maybe a second mom, whatever baby this is for her, she may feel like, okay, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I shouldn't feel this way, okay, mm-hmm. I'm wrong for feeling this way. But having thoughts and having hallucinations and feeling physical things. So it's important that we are also trained and familiar on those things, as well as educating our clients on them too, so that they know, hey, you could experience things like this. And if you do, mm-hmm. talk to me about that too. Or talk to your provider about that as well. And just making sure that they're going to have an informal support system when all this settles, whether they're going to work with me for however, long of time, or if they're not, just before I leave, before I end services with them, I need to make sure that someone else is going to be here, whether it's their mother, partner, best friend, neighbor, I don't know, but we need to figure that out and make sure that that's going to be in place for them so that they have multiple sources of support. When I go to support a family during the 4th trimester, yes, I may be there doing like housework and helping with baby stuff or whatever, but I'm also there, like Shanae said, to check in on their mental health status. I'm asking questions. I'm just observing. I'm just, I'm there to do all of these things, so that if I need to bring up something, or if I need to make a referral, or if I need to just have a conversation with them, then I can do that, based off of paying attention to what's going on with them. And hopefully, I've given them enough information throughout our time together that they feel empowered enough to say, hey, I've been having some weird stuff going on, and I just want to talk to you about it. And we can go from there. And then for families that have experienced a loss and they're not going home with the baby, they're going to experience these same things, and they deserve the same level of support. And if they have to return back to work, then I'm still going to do the same thing, as making sure that they have support. So if it's required of them to go back to work, maybe we can try to get some documentation for them to get some more time off. If that's not possible, then let's talk to your job about what type of support they offer at work, because something has happened and you do deserve time to grieve, process, and there has to be a way for your job to allow for that. Either they're going to provide it for you, or they're going to allow you the time off for it. And if I have to fight next to you, figure that out, then I'm going to do that with them, so that they're not just left high and dry to figure it out in the midst of dealing with what they're dealing with. So figuring that out, having those conversations early on, so if the time arises, we already know what we're going to do.
Yeah. Thank you for that. As I listen to you speak, and all of you speak about the services that you offer, and I just cannot help but to think of the Jeffersons moving on up, and classism, and how some of these things seem like something that is only for a certain class of people. And then I think about the cultural things. You mean to tell me you're going to have somebody else in my house with me, helping me? You're going to wash my dishes for me. You're going to do all these things. It just sounds, to me, especially, right now, being where I am in my life, my status, maybe not so much. But as a little girl hearing this sounds way out of reach. And so one of the things I want to ask about is, how do you pay for this? Finances, because I know New York has a pilot program going on, I believe, where are requiring, and I think California also requiring doulas, and they're doing Medicaid coverage and stuff. But for the most part, many states do not cover the care of doula. And so, what are your advice for paying for a doula? I will tell you that 2 vacations or less than 2 vacations paid for my doula. I'll say that. And so, so it is affordable, in my opinion, in the sense of the preventative care that you receive, and the knowledge base, and the peace of mind. So I would want to put a caveat out there, but I do want you all to share, because how you work with your clients, and just the idea of having an advocate in the space with you, where you don't have to fight with your in-law. You don't have to fight with your mom to tell you how to feed your child. If you're struggling with breastfeeding, and you have people over at the house and you want to tell them to get out, my doula empowered me to kick them out, and all those things, because I did struggle with breastfeeding, and it made me feel less than a woman. As powerful as I am, I still feel less than. And so, how do you work with your clients to help pay for this service that just seems like it's for rich people?
Well, for one, I always tell we need to get out that mentality of surviving and start thriving. That's something I learned from my doula sister, Kyra. That's like one of her favorite phrases, and we've been running with it. As Black women, we just swear we just supposed to survive. No, and anything like this is considered a luxury. No, honey, you don't have to be superwoman and all that syndrome. That's what's killing us. Getting out of that mindset. Okay, I can't do it all, and I'm fine with that. I don't want to wash the dishes. That's what somebody want to come do it. That's their job. I just create another job for another sister. That's your specialty. Come on. But also the state of Illinois actually did pass the doula bill. I'm happy for that, because we're making some progress, y'all. And a lot of insurances, private insurances, are slowly getting back into covering them. So, doing the research on that. State of Illinois for Medicaid. But if you can't, and you're in a state that you don't, so I have to tell people, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, start researching doulas, find out prices, start saving for them. It's nothing to put $20 to, okay, it might be something now because gas is $1 million, but just put something to the side. If you're planning to be pregnant, start saving for it. Also put us on your registry. You know, if you didn't plan to get pregnant, but you learned about it, now you are, and you want to have a doula. My clients, I'm at their baby showers. I help them. I create a little box. This is my doula fund. You know, some of these gifts, you get so much repetitive stuff or all these things. Actually, you know what? Just put a little money over here so I can continue to pay for my doula. And also I tell them another thing, because we did a Facebook post to kind of just see why didn't people hire a doula. And most always said the cost. But the killing part is when they say the cost, and then I say, well, how much do you think they cost? Oh, I don't know. I just assume all y'all do is expensive. You never even researched, you know, or took the time to reach out, because some of us offer sliding scales. Some of us have, you know, like I have a lot of resources. I tell people about little programs. I know they do grants. I know churches that will pay for you to have a doula, you know, programs going around here where they are getting hip to this and this service that'll pay for it. So don't count yourself out before asking. The best thing you do is say, closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't tell me or talk to somebody about what you want or inquire, you're not going to know. So those are just some of my favorite tips about how to be able to afford a doula.
A lot of times doulas that are in training will be able to offer services at very low, if not for free. And I know sometimes people hear in training and think that means inexperience, and that's not the case. A lot of times we already come with a lot of experience, but we are going through the certification process to have that certification. Hospitals are now requiring us to be certified and different things like that. Although there is no governing body over doulas that says that we have to be certified, it is a benefit to us and it is a benefit to our community. So many of us are getting certified, but a lot of times it's a requirement in certain certification programs that you attend so many births and you assist so many women. But again, that doesn't mean lack of experience. So finding someone that is in training that may need to attend a certain amount of births, that could be a benefit. That could be a way you have a doula for a very low price, if not for free. And then, like Charity said, there's a lot of programs and things. A lot of us have payment plans. We understand, you know, everybody deserves this type of care, this level of care, and lack of funds should never be a reason why you don't have it. So asking those questions, reaching out, how can I pay you? What? And a lot of us like to barter. So if you do hair, if you know your husband is a mechanic, I need an oil change, you know, he can do my oil change, you can get doula services, you know, whatever. We us do bartering, and there's different ways, but we have to ask the questions. We have to, you know, we have to do the research, but there's ways to be able to have the support, this level of support, and it be affordable.
And don't throw a lavish baby shower and then say you can't afford your doula. Now, I will have to, this is true for us doulas, because you will see this $3,000 Omega crazy baby shower, but you swore you couldn't afford your doula. I'm like, so you threw your own baby shower? Because don't get me wrong, I still think they're beautiful things, but don't do something beyond your means. But you didn't invest in your pregnancy, and then of course call us last minute and hoping I'm gonna just slide you in. You know, that goes along with doula abuse to me, because if you could afford to do that, even though you kind of technically couldn't, there's nothing wrong with having a baby shower within your budget. You ain't got to have a prom, you know, just have a little get together, let people bring stuff. The point is to get people to bring stuff. If you could spend $3,000 on that, then you could have bought all your own gifts. Is how I try to explain to people, because this just don't make sense to me. But that's just one. I'm sorry, I thought out. That's one that really gets me. You know, you can't afford this, but you spent that. I don't get it.
I was gonna also add to that, Tyree, about classism or us assuming that we don't deserve this. If we go back to our history, we've always done this. This is us. This is our culture. This belongs to us. Actually, we're taking it back. This is in every other culture around the world except for here. America is the only place that does not allow for women to rest and get supported when they go through this journey of birthing and having a baby and having postpartum care. Every other place, all the wives, all the moms, all the cousins, sisters, aunts surround that mom. They feed them. They do food trains. They come over. They rub their feet. And they massage the moms, and they cook for them, and they wash their dishes. And we used to do these things. We had midwives and doulas until, I hate to say it, but white supremacy decided that they wanted to make some money in gynecology. They wanted to do some surgery. They wanted to explore the reproductive system. And they started discrediting midwives and doulas and not allowing us to practice. And that everything shifted to the hospitals. So that is just the history of it. That's what happened. And so then when it got there, it got stuck with white women, and it was in their hands. We are rediscovering and reclaiming what belongs to us. So this is for us. And we've always done this. You can think of a time that you supported your aunt, cousin, sister in a pregnancy. Like Jay said, she's doing this since she was 10. My first pregnancy was with my best friend. She was 24. That I supported her the whole time. I advocated for her. I asked the doctors why she couldn't get an epidural, why this, why that. So we do these things for each other. We stand up for other women. Now we just got to stand up for ourselves. Like you will not let something happen to your sister. Right? Mm-hmm. Your best friend. But when it's happening to you, we always question it. We always say, maybe I'm tripping or maybe I shouldn't. And so your doula is your sister. That's that person standing next to you, fighting for you and saying, no, that's not right. You're not going to do her like that. I'm not standing for that. We're not standing for that. We're changing the narrative around this. And so yes, we take sliding scales, medicated, things are changing. There are programs out there, but you just have to ask. I mean, Jay, I'm her backup doula. And if she was to say, hey, girl, I need you to do this for me, I wouldn't even ask her for any of her money from that birth. I would just do it. Because we just have to do those things for each other and stand up for our families and our community. So I just say with postpartum, like I always tell my moms, my families, period. I always tell them, like, I'm here to do for you what you need, or sometimes what you want, and make it easier on you. And there's no shame in that. Like you're supposed to relax. You just went through your body just went through something so traumatic. Even though it's a beautiful experience, you still had to do a lot to have this baby. You grew this baby, and now you're having this baby, and then you had this baby, and nobody teaches you how to take care of a baby. You just get it, and they send you home with it. That's it, right?
Here's your baby.
You have to use your supports, or if you experience a loss, what does that look like for you? You're not supposed to go through that on your own, and we have to normalize not grieving and not grieving and saying like, oh, this happened, and just move on with your life, because that's not fair and it's not right. And so we have to really, really start normalizing these things, because it belongs to us. We deserve it. It's not out of your scope. You can have it. Again, you just have to figure out what you want. And maybe you don't want a birth doula. Maybe you just need postpartum. You can break it up. There are so many different options in the ways that you can have a doula. So you just have to call somebody, ask some questions. All of us, we love talking about it. As you can see, we'll talk for hours and hours and hours, and we'll connect you with resources, and we'll connect you to people. And I think too, a huge part about being a doula, I also think, is a networker. We network a lot. We connect. And so even if we can't do it for you, we probably know somebody else that can. So you just have to ask a question and reach out. And I guarantee that you're going to get some answer or some type of direction from a doula.
Okay, I didn't know enough Sinead had anything to include there, but here's something else. I wanted to say something to what you just said. So here we do have Family Medical Leave Act. And so if you're on a job that support that, you do have the option of submitting in a request for that, and you can use that time. And that's a whole complex thing. And we'll bring somebody on HR, a content expert, to talk to you about that, because, I have worked with women who've tried to navigate through that, and they made a mistake and used some of their FMLA, and they didn't understand that maybe it is paid time off, not paid time off, all of that together. So that is optional to anybody for that fourth trimester, to use that time to be home and to bond and to care for your child. And then I also wanted to make note that we are in a crisis. We are in a serious crisis where maternal mortality for anyone, regardless of race, in the United States is extremely high. But then there have these disparities among African-American people. So it is in addressing it, research is the practice by which we use evidence-based research is a practice by which we use in order to pinpoint the causes, the systemic issues, and how to best address that. And so I do want to make the statement that that is also for one of the reasons, and the scrutiny around doulas is the lack of evidence-based approaches, which is now in 21st century happening, where you have evidence-based approaches with doula, but there's limited research, limited content around it to be able to understand the impact. There's research that shows that doulas make a profound impact in some way. And so there's a call for more doulas. We have scholarship programs. We have a scholarship recipient on now. We have scholarship programs that are out there that are, bringing on more African-American doulas to make this shift. But there's not a lot of body of research that is out there that is understanding how that is happening, partly because there's not, as Jasmine said, a standardized governing body that is normalizing the practice across the board. And so that creates some issues with partnerships with hospitals. And we know there's a need for Black doulas. We know how important that they are, but that need that is greater and present more so than the research is and the partnerships there. So we've talked about a lot of different things, and I think you all have shared a lot of great information about doulas. There's some things I want you to close out on. And I would like for each one of you all to take one of these questions as we head out. So I use Google to find a doula. I did not know where to go to find a doula. Now I know. I have on Shades of Becoming a Mom, there's a resource list for a lot of different things, but I didn't know, how do you find a doula? So Geneva, you can answer that question. That's your question. How do you find a doula? And Shanae, I hope I'm saying your name right. I always think I'm going to say it wrong. Can you give us some words of women to African-American women as they're going through this experience and that need for a doula? So something positive to share with them, because something came up earlier that Jasmine has said about fear. We don't want women to be afraid to get pregnant or afraid to birth or afraid to walk into a facility. So what words of wisdom might you have? Jasmine, your question as you are leaving out, and this is so we can just have a quick wrap up. Your question for women. Let's talk about that natural childbirthing experience, because that's scary. That home birth. What is so beautiful about it? How can it help that person and their partner to bond together? So if you can address that. And then finally, Charity, my activist, if you can close us out with advocacy in itself in the Black maternal health crisis. Why is it important for the community to be knowledgeable about what's going on, whether they have children or don't have children, to be able to move the needle so that we can end this maternal health crisis? We all have our marching orders. Geneva, you go first.
Okay, so how do you go about finding the doula first? I would say, yes, Google is your friend. Google knows all, but you can Google and you can look for a doula, but you have access to 1, 2, 3, 4 doulas right now. And Shades Black Moms is also going to be a great resource to you guys going forward. But there are, I would say you can look on Facebook. A lot of doulas will create Facebook pages. And so you can put in the doula and put in the state name, and Facebook pages will pop up, Instagram pages will pop up. You could put in doula and then put in the state that you're in or the city that you're in, and then you'll get a list of doulas from there. After that, I would say read their bios, look at their website. If you're interested, make a consultation, have a conversation, interview them like you would interview anybody else, because you're going to have that interaction with them. Have your partner or your family interview with them, have a couple of meetings. And interview more than one doula. Compare, contrast, figure out the pros and the cons, start saving money, ask about their finance, the money up front, so that you know what you're working with. And so the earlier you prepare, the more you could be better prepared for that. But again, you have access to doulas right here. Our information is going to be up, and so we can definitely connect you with whatever you may need.
Next.
I'll go. and talk about the home births. So for anyone that may be thinking of having a home birth, whether with a doula or not, I would say the benefit of a home birth, if you're thinking of having unmedicated home birth, the benefit is that you get to set this up any way that you like. This is going to be in your space, and you have complete and total control over the environment. So you and your partner have the benefit of, setting the scene, setting the environment. So if you want lights, candles, you want music, you want, aromatherapy, if you want your children there, if you want your animals there, whatever it is that you want, you get to set the scene so that you're going to be totally comfortable. You're not going to have someone coming in and interrupting every 20, 30 minutes. You're going to be comfortable in your own space. It could be in a tub in the middle of your living room. It could be in your own bathtub. It could be in your bed. It could be however you want it to be. And you and your partner get to have this moment, have this time, and have this space. And there is some research that shows that home births, there are better outcomes for women that want to have unmedicated birth because they're able to control the environment. The stress level is almost gone, and there's no talk about tearing or emerging or bleeding out, hemorrhaging, any of those things, because you have set the environment. You've made it as comfortable as you need it to be, and you get to control that. So that gives you more power of taking back your birth, of taking back the experience, and you and your partner get to really just, revel in that and bond in that and connect throughout the whole process. And so there are doulas that support that as well and can be there with you if that's what you want. There are also midwives that will come to your home if you do want a medical, personnel there as well that will come to your home and support you through that as well. We work together with the midwife. We do things that they don't do. They do things that we don't do. So everybody has a role, but ultimately you are in control. That's it.
Yeah. Janelle, can you go?
Yeah. So words of wisdom for Black birthing persons as they walk into their birthing space, whether that's home or the hospital, would be to trust that you know yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. When you walk into that space, trust that you will show up for yourself. You will show up for your baby and your body. Listen to your body. Trust your body. It will know what to do. Your body is going to call you into a birthing position, and you are going to zero in, focus in. You're going to find your sacred space, and you are going to birth the baby. So just trust yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Wonderful.
Alrighty. And as far as the community and why it's so important to end the crisis, first things first, the community is what sets the tone for the birthing person in general. So the womb is the center, our wombs, Black women. And if we're living in places of, social, it determines issues, medical apartheid, food apartheid, all these things that are happening in our own communities, you don't feel safe. It's gunshots at night. You live in fight or flight mode, things like this is why the community has to be involved, because we have to start making our communities safer places for us so we can continue to have these healthy wombs and to continue to have children and start bringing them up in better environments, as well as educating the community on our health in general, as well as breaking those curses with our families, as I spoke on before. We got to get rid of that, yes, ma'am, almost like yes, a master mentality, where if, a physician or white or Black, whoever tells you thing, the doctor said this, though, that's right. No, actually, again, getting that this is another human. I need to educate myself. Stop questioning yourself. Don't think that you're dumb. Don't think there's no such thing as a dumb question. Ask what you need to ask. If you don't know, you don't know. Be comfortable with asking. Be comfortable with yourself. Be comfortable with getting second opinions, not sticking with what anybody just gives you. And also how should I put this? Okay, so with what I really want to talk about, so when we say with the governing bodies, everybody else has a governing body, right? Nurses and things of that nature. So although it is beautiful, and I am so happy, the Omnibus Act and how a lot of these states are now catching on, and they're, Medicaid is paying for these things. But what happens when government gets involved? So eventually, a governing body is going to take place for doulas, right? And right now, the big name everybody wants to say is DONA. And although they're recently trying to fix their mistakes of racism that was done, I'm sorry, I'm big mouth. I'm not scared of anybody. I'm just call out and say DONA. Yeah, there are issues. We have to get to the point where our trainings by Black women is acknowledged and not looked down as not good enough. So when we in these big meetings, when I'm in these big meetings with these IDHS people, the health, states, and we're proving why this is necessary, making sure when they're like, oh, well, this and that, like you said, certain hospitals say you got to be certified, but you can come certified, and they're like, oh, but not through that one. They're not acknowledging our very own trainings held by Black women. So we have to continue in the community to fight for our training, to say our training is just as good, if not better, than those trainings, as well as making sure our trainings are in line to make sure we're putting out educated doulas. And when I say educated doulas, I think a lot of doulas get it confused to where, we're not medical professionals. When you're in that role, whether you are a medical professional or not, you're not acting as a medical professional. But that does not mean that you're not supposed to have knowledge of the medical field, because how can you support a person who is pregnant, who can go from low risk to no risk to something happens and all of a sudden this person now has developed a complication, but you don't understand how to operate complications, or you don't understand that this person does battle with mental health issues, and maybe they take something like Prozac, and you say, oh, you don't need to take that, just take these teas and herbs and that's going to work. That's not something they're supposed to just stop cold turkey, honey. You don't advise them that way. So again, making sure that we are putting out educated doulas so that when we do go up against, as I like to call them, Goliath, you have those educated doulas where they throwing stuff out at you, even in like the hospital. They're going to try your knowledge. They're going to try to make you feel intimidated and say something. And if you don't know it, or, you're like, oh, so now you're looking like a deer in headlights. And to your client, you're now looking like you're not educated in your field, right? So those are all the things I feel like in the community and amongst us as Black women, we got to make sure we're out advocating, not just for ourselves. We have to get out and advocate for our rights, our health, our children, our men. We have to get out and advocate for our trainings and get on top of this before this governing board comes. And if the governing board does come about, make sure if it ain't all Black women, it's a nice amount of Black women on there so that we can make sure we are getting our just dues.